So, hello everybody, this is Stedford here, and I'm going to be doing a quick video to go over the details about the Stedford MultiBus technique for mixing. A few days ago, I posted on the Facebook page, the Slate Audiophiles Facebook page, about a technique that I've been using for a couple of years now, but something that I've only recently started to develop and actually develop into an actual technique, a real technique. Which I would love to give out to people and hopefully people to start using to get better mixes. So basically what this is a technique for the mix bus, which kind of follows on from the Brouwerism technique. So the mix engineer, very, very famous mix engineer, Michael Brouwer, I mean, credits for like Coldplay, Katie Tunstall, I mean, some really good credits, really, really good guy, amazing mix engineer. He has a technique of his own called Brouwerism, which basically is 4 mix buses. So instead of running all of your tracks to one mix bus with some EQ, some compression, or whatever it is you have on your mix bus, he has 4 separate mix buses. And each of these 4 separate mix buses would have 4 different compressors with different settings. One would have an EQ with it, another one would have sort of a stereo widener on it. But the main idea of it is to have 4 separate mix buses. So you could send subgroups, things like vocals, to a completely separate compression bus than you would your drums, for instance. Because if you were using just one mix bus, which most people do, if you're sending your drums and your bass and your vocals and your guitars all to one compressor, the compressor is going to start reacting to the most transient part, which is normally your drums. So your compressor would start reacting to your drums and then in turn alter the way it would compress your vocals, for instance. So he's decided to coin his own technique called Brouwerism, where you would send various different parts or various different subgroups of your track to different mix buses, which I used for a while. And I really did like that kind of technique, and I love the idea behind it. And then one day I was just mixing a track, and I decided instead of doing it with compressors, I may send these out to different EQ values. So instead of having 4 separate mix buses for compression, I had 4 separate EQ buses. I had a low mid, a high mid, and a high. After some time, I changed this around and gave myself just 3 EQ mix buses, a low, a mid, and a high. And then all of those would feed a compression bus, a compression or saturation bus, which would have one compressor and one sort of saturation plugin on it. At the time, I was using just a standard saturation plugin. So you can see from the session here, how I'm going to run this and how I'm going to demonstrate it is what I've done is I've got 8 tracks, 8 stems. This I've done for ease of use. Instead of having it as a full session where all of my tracks would then feed subgroups, these basically are my subgroups, okay? So this is what my subgroups would be. I've got 8 subgroups. I've got one for drums, bass, pads, strings, synth pad, which is just sort of a synth shot, stabs, effects and noise, which is things like sweeps, whooshes, crashes, and so on, and then a couple of impacts. So the more bassier end of the impacts. So all of these stems would act as my subgroups or my subgroup channels. If I just swap the screens over for a second. If I now go over to this screen, you can see my setup here. So how this is actually set up and how the mix bus works, how the Stedford bus works. So we've got all of our subgroups here. This would be our subgroup. So again, drums all the way through to impacts. And then here is where it starts to get into the actual technique. So as you can see, I've got one bus here called the low bus. I've got another bus here called the mid bus and another one called the high. And you can see they've got all different EQ settings on. So if I just open up the low bus, you can see from here that I've got sort of a lift at 55. Obviously, don't watch. I've done this wrong. Like I shouldn't. This band should really be around here, not over here. But I just normally grab and go. I've got a couple of dB at about 55 hertz. I've got a couple of dB at 75 on a bit of a wider Q. And a cut at 22 hertz there. Quite a steep cut, 48 dB per octave on a cut. On my mid-band, if I just open up the mid-band, got a nice little lift there, 2 dB at 650. And then on my high band, I've got a cut all the way down, 200 hertz, and further down is completely cut out. And I've got a lift at about 10K, okay? And then all of these 3 buses would then feed this general compression bus. Now, this is why I've originally posted it on the Slate website, was because I just use Slate plugins on my mix bus most of the time now. So the first one is a tape machine. Love this plugin. Anyone that doesn't have the Slate bundle or the Slate plugins, if you're thinking about getting one, this is an essential plugin to have. for your mix bus, for standard channels, for subgroups, for generally anything. It makes everything sound awesome. There's no other way I can put it. It's just a brilliant plugin. I own 2 tape machines. I've got 2 Studer B67 tape machines. I say I own them. They're Streaky G from Streaky Mastering. They're his tape machines. But they're now at my studio. And I use tape machines, so I use those just for colour, basically. So I come in and I go straight back out again. I don't really record to tape that much. For the use of recording to tape, I just use them for the tape sound. And this plugin is, in my opinion, better than a tape machine. A lot of people disagree with me, but I don't care. I think this is an amazing plugin, and it's so much easier than having to turn the tape machine on and deal with tape machiney things when I can just open a plugin and be as versatile as I like with it. So this is the first part of my mix bus, the compression bus. Got a bit of tape saturation there. Next is the FGX, which there's not a lot going on, to be honest. Very slow attack, very fast release. Hardly any ratio whatsoever. A little bit of gain boost, about 1 dB in gain boost. But all this is just to sort of get a little bit of glue going and still be quite transparent with the sound, okay? And then lastly, I've got just a trimmer plugin using the virtual mix rack. And all this is for is to give me a level out. So I've got a nice print level. So if anyone says to me they want a -6 mix, I can just come to here and then make sure that I'm putting my trim down till I get to about -6 dB. And then I can print them off that mix. So all this is basically for print level. But my compressor track is basically 2 plugins. I've got a tape emulation plugin, which is a slate tape, which again I love, and the FGX, okay? Sometimes I will use an IO insert just to go outboard for a bit of compression. But a lot of the time, if I'm just in the box, which is kind of the way I'm going right now, this is how it would work out, okay? So we've got a low, a mid, and a high. So all of our subgroups are sent to these, and then these, in turn, are sent to an overall compression bus, okay? So you can see the sort of the Browerism way, but just now it's just gone a different direction, okay? So we've got 4 buses, but 3 of them are independent, and then they all feed one overall compression bus. So, right, let's get into the actual track routing. So how we've got drums all the way through to impacts. All of these 8, this is very important now, must be set to 0 output. There must be no output straight direct to any buses or stereo outs. You must make sure they are set to 0 output. This can be done in any DAW. It doesn't have to be in Logic. I'm a big Pro Tools user, but I'm using Logic again a lot of the time now. I use Ableton as well. This can be done in Ableton. It can be done in any DAW basically. And you must make sure that your subgroups or your stem tracks have 0 output set, because the only way you're going to be sending to these mix buses is via auxiliary sends. And now this is again very important. They must be post fader, okay? Because you're not sending out direct outs from the bottom, you must make sure that the send value is post fader. So if you send to 0 dB or unity gain on the send, it will give you the amount that your fader was at down here in the mix, okay? So let's get into how this works. So now I've got all these set to no output. What I can do is, and the theory behind this and how this technique came about, is I can now send all of my drums at various amounts to various different EQ buses. So for instance, I've got my low on my drums, I've got a unity gain, so standard fader level, all the way is being sent to this low boost curve. I've then got around about just under 16, -16 dB, 15.8 dB there, going to the mid bus, and around about -12 going to the high bus, okay? Now what these, instead of just putting one, a lot of people have said, why not just put one EQ on the whole thing? The reason for this is that I've got various different amounts that I'm pushing into, okay? Rather than having just this one curve on, I'm sending various amounts, I'm pushing various volume amounts into different EQ curves, okay? And again, for everything that you have, you could decide how much of which you send to which would then feed your compressor and saturation channel. So that's enough of me talking, that's enough of me geeking. Now let's listen to exactly what it sounds like. So what I have is, let's go back to the original screen. Oh, it's doing its, there we go. Let's go back to the original screen. So here we are. What I'm going to do, I've got all of my tracks here. I've just looped it over a certain area. What I'm going to do now is play the original track. So if I go back to this, it's going to have another bit of a meh. There we go. I've got a reference track. So what the reference track is all of those stems bounced out, but bypassing all of this mix matrix here. All it's doing is going direct out to this compressor channel. So I'm using this, the same saturation and compressor values. All I'm doing is bypassing this Stedford bus matrix. So let's have a listen to this, and so you get a feel for the track. Let's go. Nice. So you get an idea of what it's going for. If you like that sort of stuff, please feel free to check it out. That's a track that's on the Broken Science album, that's part of Warner Chappell Production Music. So yeah, if you ever want to listen to anything like that, sort of deeper, bassier side of music, I make sync music for Warner Chappell. So go onto their website, check out, just type in my name, Shay Stedford, and have a listen to some of the other stuff. That's enough of the plug. So that's the reference track. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to solo the reference track again so you can hear that, and then I'm going to mute the reference track so I'm getting the new Stedford MultiBus mix. Okay, so what you should be able to hear from this now is an extension in the width, an extension in the depth of the sound. It's going to sound cleaner, it's going to sound more open, and I'm not really going to get that much difference in level, maybe 1 or 2 dB here or there, but that's what this trimmer is for, so I can equal the gains. Okay. For now, though, we're just going to listen to exactly what it sounds like, switching between the two. So remember, the reference track in solo is going to be all of my subgroups going straight to this compression channel, compression and saturation channel. And then when I mute this, it was going to be the exact same tracks, but now playing through the Stedford MultiBus matrix. And we'll hear what that sounds like. So let's go. Cool. So you can hear what happens there. Again, there is a little bit of a difference in the dB level, but I mean, it's not drastic, it's not huge. And the perceived loudness is quite drastic. The width has gone, it's now a lot more open, a lot clearer. And that's all down to the fact that mainly in the drums, I'm sending most of my drums to the low bus, so I'm getting a bit more body out of it. Again, a little bit to the mid bus, so a little bit more body again. And then sending stuff to the highs. So when I'm adding these highs to the drums, I'm not adding any more low end, I'm just adding a nice sort of shelf at the top. And I get to decide how much of that I have in, okay? So I'm just, how this kind of works is that it's so versatile that you can literally change the sound of your mix by a couple of dB send level here or there to different parts, okay? And all you are working off is send levels. So that's basically it, pretty much. You can hear the difference in the sound there. This doesn't have to just be on electronic dance music and electronic music styles. This works on everything that I've tried it on, to be honest. From acoustics, where it's just a vocal, some guitars, and some string lines in the background, working off just 3 stems. It still works really well. I'm not saying this is going to make your mixes amazing and this is like some next voodoo technique that's going to take over the world. It's just another technique that you can use in your arsenal of techniques if you're a mix engineer or just a producer and you want to get your mixes as tight as you can before they go to master. So just to recap, you need to make sure that all of your subgroups or stem tracks have 0 output set to them so they don't go anywhere. You need to then make sure that all of your send levels are post fader, so they keep the integrity of the level that you've set from your subgroup or stem tracks. You need to make sure that the low, mid and the high band are set to whatever values you'd like. You can change from these. These are just my specific values that I really like. And again, all of these 3 must then feed an overall compression or saturation bus. And again, you can put whatever your standard mix bus compression or saturation plugins would be. They don't have to be these Slate plugins. This is just my sort of compression bus of choice. The only main thing that should stay static and should stay with the technique is the routing, okay? So you have a low, a mid and a high bus that feed a compression bus. You can set the settings of your EQs as you want, and then you would send 0 output but post fader send to as many as these mix buses as you would like to the values that you would like. So yes, this is just it was just that I got asked to do this video. I was in the middle of just working on something and I thought I'd do the video quickly now while I had a few minutes. Any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to ask me. This is still in development. I'm still working on the frequencies. I'm working on the bands. But the technique is pretty much there. But any other questions? I'd love to hear what you think of it. I'd love to hear if you've tried it and what results you're getting from it. If you would like, I can save this template as a preset without obviously the subgroups in, but just the busing structure. So you've got the low, mid, high and compression bus with the stereo out channel. It would be for Logic, to be fair, because I've got it just down in Logic. I can set it exactly the same as this. But it's very, very simple to sort out yourself. All you need is 4 auxiliary channels. And then just decide what send numbers and names you're going to call them. So yes, please, any questions, please leave in the comments, or please send me a friend request via Facebook, just to geek out about sound. So yes, thank you very much. Any other questions, let me know, and I'm going to get on with the rest of my work. So cheers, bye.